Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Village of Riverside Board of Trustees regular meeting of Thursday, February 19th, 2026. Please stand as you're able for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk Stenzel, please call the roll.
Trustee Marshazga.
Here.
Trustee Gallegos.
Here.
Trustee Koss.
Present.
Trustee Evans.
Here.
Trustee Mateo.
Here.
Trustee Fitzgerald.
Here.
President Pollock.
Here.
Manager Francis.
Here.
Attorney Pickrell.
Here.
Also present, Clerk Stenzel.
Thank you. President's report tonight. I'd like to start with a recap of the West Central Municipal Conference Legislative Breakfast, which was held last Saturday. Village of Riverside was well represented. Trustees Fitzgerald, Evans, and Marshazga and myself attended and Mateo attended the meeting. Sorry. It was their annual legislative breakfast, so I just would like to highlight a few items that our Council of Governments is pursuing in Springfield this year. One is online publication of public hearing notices, which would save the village some money on publications. They are pursuing a reduction in the threshold for home rule status from 25,000 people to 5,000 people. They're pursuing additional capital funding for local governments. They're also fighting to reinstate our local government distributive fund, which is the income tax that the state sends back to local municipalities. A couple other related issues have come up. We have been addressing this issue of delayed property tax distributions, which is delayed from the Cook County Treasurer. They are late in collecting and distributing property tax to local governments, which our budget is dependent on obviously on the property tax itself, but also on the interest we earn from the property tax. So delayed payments cost us tens of thousands of dollars in lost interest. So we're working on that. Manager Francis and I are working on that through our neighbors and also West Central Municipal Conference. I also wanted to just real quickly mention something that came up in the Governor's State of the State address yesterday. Governor Pritzker announced an initiative to promote affordable housing in the state of Illinois. There was a lot to be concerned about in terms of the details that were presented, but I would just say that this is just an initial proposal. It still has to go through many, many legislative processes, and I want to assure everyone on this board as well as in the public that the Village of Riverside will be a big part of that discussion with our regional partners as well as our state representatives. Upcoming meetings include February 23rd, Parks and Recreation Board regular meeting, 6:30 p.m. at Riverside Public Library. And our next village board meeting is March 5th, 6:30 p.m., same time, same place. Trustee reports. I understand we have an update to be provided by Trustee Marshazga regarding the final sesquicentennial update.
I do. And as I mentioned at the last meeting, and for those who were not there, the Sesquicentennial Committee is so grateful for all of the help and assistance in making last year's programming incredible for everyone. I'm talking volunteers, I'm talking sponsors, I'm talking staff, I'm talking just everyone who had a part in this really historic year for Riverside. In order to say thank you to all of you, we are hosting a closing ceremony at the Riverside Public Library tomorrow, starting at 5:30 p.m. And we really hope that all of you will be there so we can raise a toast to the year, look back, but also look forward. We do have a good report from our final 150 meeting in January, in that we were so successful with everything last year that we have approximately, then this is estimated until all expenses are finally in, but roughly $20,000 to put towards a legacy project. And we are going to ask for the board's permission tonight for those residual funds and anything that we raise in addition at the closing to be dedicated towards the project that's planned for Turtle Park. So we have an online sesquicentennial legacy auction going now with some great art pieces, everything from an original Audubon lithograph to items from the 1975 centennial, to a brand new piece that was created just for the sesquicentennial by muralist Erica Vizana of the Water Tower. So some very special pieces there. If you'd like to support the Legacy Project, but you don't have extra wall space, you can still do that too through the auction. So just go to the auction site and kind of look at the description in the drop-down menu. And at the bottom, there's a little donate button. So any amount is greatly appreciated. It's going to be a great project for our community that's really a gift to our children and our families, and really the whole community now and going forward. So we're very excited, we're very happy, we're very grateful, and we just hope you will all join us. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Marshowska and Trustee Gallagher.
Well, I do want to add,
Please do.
Sorry, I'm sorry I talked too much.
ditto.
Ditto. Got it, thank you. But thank you, Trustees Marshowska and Gallegos, for spearheading and co-chairing the Sesquicentennial Committee. I know it's been a lot of extra work for both of you, and thank you also to the committee who's put in a lot of work. And there's some tangible benefits. This wasn't just a bunch of parties. we have new street signs thanks to the Sesquicentennial Committee, and the legacy project of Turtle Park will live on, of course. And you've reminded us all of what a great blessing it is for us to be Riverside residents. So thank you. Mm-hmm. Are there any other trustee reports this evening? Manager's report, Manager Francis.
Thank you. I have a few items this evening. One that I wanted to make mention of is Riverside Township Mental Health Board is going to be hosting a presentation this weekend, Saturday, February 21st, 2026, at 1 p.m. on the second floor. Actually, Director Buckley will be participating as part of this presentation, and it is called "The Kids Are Not All Right." And I'll just read a quick description that the Mental Health Board provided. The evidence keeps coming in that our adolescents and young adults are in crisis. One CDC study reported that half of our kids are reporting anxiety and depression. The many mental health problems with our kids are being widely chronicled. This presentation will present information on the contributing factors and the available Riverside Township agencies serving our youth. It will also be broadcast by Riverside TV and will be available for families to watch on Riverside TV if they're unable to attend. Thank you to the Mental Health Board, and thank you also to Director Buckley for coordinating that with the Mental Health Board. I think it's a very important presentation for Riverside Township families. The next item that I have is I'm very excited to notify the village board that earlier this week I had a conversation with Cook County Forest Preserve. So if the board recalls, there's been a lot of discussion about the alignment over on Wabansie, that bike trail. And so after numerous meetings, on-site meetings between Director Tabb, myself, and different representatives of the Forest Preserve, Cook County Forest Preserve has agreed to enter into an agreement with the village to pay for the following expenses that will occur on Wabansie as it relates to the costs associated with the bike path. Phase 2 construction engineering, Phase 3 construction, long-term maintenance and replacement of that section on Wabansie. This agreement is based upon the path alignment being installed over the village's water main. The village will be responsible for any patch repairs if there is a need to access our water main or repair that water main or any other village infrastructure that's underneath. But, so we're planning, Director Tab and I, want to make the board aware that we're not just looking at creating an amenity and recreation opportunity for Riverside residents and surrounding communities, but we're also planning for the future so that once this is built, that there are resources allocated to make sure that's maintained in perpetuity for residents. So we're very excited about that one. Thank you. And I also want to congratulate Director Zavala and the Finance Department on receiving the Government Finance Officers Association Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting for fiscal year 2024. This is the village's 35th year of receiving that award. It's an important award, especially when you're going out for bonds and debt service and updating your bond rating. They look at whether or not you've consistently received that award over the years. Additionally, I've received some questions with regard to the park zoning from different community and board members, and so I wanted to provide an estimated timeline on that process, but then also kind of providing context as to why we're doing this and also kind of where we're at. So basically, the estimated time frame for the different park zoning pieces would be Parks and Recreation Board will be discussing uses and review maps in March. Then Planning and Zoning Commission would begin their review, and that's estimated to be between April and June, depending on how many meetings they need. Then it'll come back to the board. It's estimated either in June or July. And then staff would report back to various commissions, including LAC and Preservation. It's estimated that we would do a public hearing for the Planning and Zoning Commission in August, and then tentatively September, we would have something to present to the village board as it relates to all of those different recommendations. So all of this could be subject to change depending on how much more information or discussion is required, whether through the board, at the preliminary phase, before the public hearings, or at the various commission meetings. So I just wanted the board to be aware of that. And just also to give some context to the general public of the purpose of creating the zoning for the village parks. I know this was kind of discussed at a very high level when Barry Dunn was doing the presentation, and then we had incorporated into our strategic plan. But I felt it was also important to identify these items. It implements the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, so the plan in which I was referencing, Barry Dunn, which recommended parks and natural areas be distinguished by zoning district. It enhances transparency and predictability to the community and neighbors that are around those green spaces and parks. Residents will be able to access the zoning ordinance to know what is permitted and not permitted on a specific park or natural area. It will establish a structure for decision-making as it relates to open spaces and parks. The zoning process would provide a framework for village and public review of any zoning changes. This is actually, not that those other items aren't really important, but this is important for a funding perspective. It strengthens the village's grant competitiveness, as clear land use designations can strengthen applications for both state and federal grants by demonstrating permanent commitment to park use. So the example of that is if we're getting an OSLAD grant, for example, the state doesn't want to be giving the village $500,000 or $1 million knowing that that could change and that park could go away. So that's just an example. It also reinforces our community values by designating certain areas for active park space and other areas for passive use. This illustrates that the village values recreation, nature, health, and shared community space. So I will work on getting that on the website, and then making sure that that's also in the different information and materials that are provided to the commissions as that discussion continues. And finally, I want to congratulate some staff members on recent anniversaries. These are our February anniversaries. So we have AJ Ruska, who's a firefighter, has been with the village for 21 years. Maria Bellato, who is resident services representative, has been with the village for 3 years. Zena Ramos, police officer, 3 years. Josh Tooney, police officer, 17 years. Michael DeLilio, firefighter, 3 years. Jack Riley, firefighter, 3 years. Edwin Flores, firefighter, 3 years. Alejandro Barajas, firefighter, 3 years. John Connolly, firefighter, 1 year. Alejandro Garcia Cervantes, firefighter, 1 year. Samuel Lopez, firefighter, 1 year. Rafael Rodriguez, firefighter, 1 year. Jacob Sweeney, firefighter, 1 year. Michael Williams, firefighter, 1 year. And Red Bauer, recreation assistant, 1 year. That is all I have.
Thank you, Manager Francis. Next on the agenda is public comments for non-agenda items. Is there anyone in attendance who would like to speak to the board?
Hi, and my apologies, this is an agenda item, but President Pollack said it was okay.
Yeah.
All right. All right, good evening. I'm Valerie Kramer, as most of you know by now. I'm a Riverside resident and leader of Ride Riverside, a community bicycle group. Thank you for the item on tonight's agenda, and thank you, Manager Francis, for the update on the trail. That's very exciting. So on the item on tonight's agenda is the approval of an agreement to develop a bicycle and pedestrian plan. Last May, members of Ride Riverside spoke before the board and delivered a petition. We asked for safer streets, traffic calming for our children, and a commitment to reject the idea that traffic injuries are inevitable. Now, just months later, the village is moving forward to begin developing a comprehensive bike and pedestrian plan. It is not lost on me what a victory this is for the children who navigate a busy morning school drop-off on bike or on foot. This plan will also benefit drivers by helping our streets function more safely and predictably for everyone. Riverside benefits every day from preservation decisions made by earlier generations, including the choice not to widen roads to move more traffic through downtown, unlike many surrounding communities. Those decisions protected Riverside's character. People often describe Riverside as Mayberry, a town where children can walk or bike to school, neighbors stop to chat on the sidewalk, and when you move in, a neighbor shows up with cookies. We have the previous generations to thank for preserving that sense of community by keeping our streets at a human scale. Now it is our turn to build on that legacy and continue improving safety for everyone. This is what responsive local government looks like. Residents speak, village listens, and the village acts. Ride Riverside looks forward to contributing thoughtful input as this work moves ahead. Thank you to the board and staff for your responsiveness and commitment to this effort. Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie. There appears to be no one else for public comments.
Does Apollo have something to add?
Apollo, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, okay.
Consent agenda. Clerk Stenzel, please read the consent agenda.
Approved voucher list of bills, February 19th, 2026. Approved Village Board of Trustees regular meeting minutes, January 15th, 2026. Review and file board and commission minutes. Sesquicentennial Ad Hoc Committee regular meeting minutes, November 10th, 2025. Historical Commission regular meeting minutes, November 17th, 2025. Parks and Recreation Board regular meeting minutes, November 17th, 2025. Riverside TV Commission regular meeting minutes, December 1st, 2025. Preservation Commission regular meeting minutes, December 11th, 2025. Landscape Advisory Commission regular meeting minutes, January 13th, 2026. Review and file department monthly reports. Community Development, January 2026. Public Works, January 2026. Finance, January 2026. A resolution authorizing the village president and village board to appoint finance director Yvette Zavala as village treasurer. An ordinance amending various sections of Title 8 of the Village Code of the Village of Riverside, Illinois, relative to sewerage system. A resolution of the Village of Riverside, Illinois, waiving competitive bidding and authorizing the village manager to issue a purchase order to Motorola Solutions for the purchase of 7 radios not to exceed $59,998.54. A resolution authorizing the village manager to waive competitive bidding and execute an agreement with Christopher B. Burke Engineering for a total amount not to exceed $75,000 for professional engineering services as a part of the Groveland Sewer Separation Improvements. An ordinance amending and updating Title IV Building Regulations of the Village Code. An ordinance authorizing the village manager to waive competitive bidding and execute a sales agreement with Turf Works for a total amount not to exceed $99,648.25 for the purchase of a large area mower. A resolution authorizing the village manager to waive competitive bidding and execute a purchase order with Metropolitan Industries for a total amount not to exceed $40,229 for the replacement of a water distribution pump. A resolution authorizing the sale or disposal of personal property owned by the Village of Riverside. And a resolution authorizing the expenditure of $405,000 for the 2026 maintenance under the Illinois Highway Code.
Do any of these items need to be removed? If not, could I get a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda?
So seconded.
Motion and a second. Clerk Stenzel, please call the roll.
Trustee Marshazga?
Aye.
Trustee Galagos?
Aye.
Trustee Cos?
Aye.
Trustee Evans?
Aye.
Trustee Mateo?
Aye.
Trustee Fitzgerald?
Aye.
Thank you. Consent agenda is approved. Department, board, and commission reports. Salon liquor license survey results. Clerk Stenzel.
Staff sent an email survey and conducted oral surveys with the different salons and barbershops registered to the Village of Riverside. We received mixed feedback for various reasons. Of the 2 locations that were in favor, only one of them had considered the license previously. The concerns that were noted for the ones that were not in favor were mostly based on the financial impact of their businesses. A lot of them questioned whether revenue would outweigh the costs associated with this. That being said, during the conversation, staff shared that businesses are always able to apply for a special event and do a temporary liquor license should they host one-time events. Many of the businesses that were hesitant about a full license responded positively to the idea of a temporary license. After the discussion, staff intends to distribute additional information regarding special events and temporary liquor licenses to businesses so they know that they have that opportunity for different marketing and promotional efforts. At this time, staff does not recommend moving forward with the creation of a salon liquor license type. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Trustees, any questions for staff?
Not a question, but just thank you for reaching out and bringing a potential economic opportunity to our businesses.
Welcome.
Yes, even though it appears there's no interest right now, at least it's on everyone's radar, and they know that it is something that is possible if they want to pursue it. Any further discussion or comments? Is the consensus then to not take any further actions?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Pending business, discussion regarding food truck and mobile vending. Director Siren.
Good evening. To recap the discussion so far, the board expressed support for revising standards for 2 categories of food trucks. The first is food trucks at special events, and the second is food trucks operating as licensed businesses. The board has provided feedback on both categories, but before staff drafts code amendments based on that feedback, there are a few remaining questions that we have for the board. Special Assistant to Administration and Finance and Village Clerk Emily Stenzel will review the special events category, and I'll review the licensed business category.
Thank you. So based on board feedback at previous meetings, staff has drafted standards for special events relating to food trucks. This is the questions that we're looking for board direction for. I'll go through each of these different line items. For any questions or points of clarification, please feel free to stop me. So first, attached to a special event. Food trucks seeking to operate with a special event license must be attached to approved special event. Special events can range from large free and public events to smaller ticketed events. That being said, if an event is for a private party contained within the boundaries of private property, for example, a birthday party, we would not require a special event application. The current fee for special event applications is $25. For the temporary food service fee, special event food trucks would be required to obtain a $30 temporary food service fee, so that would be on top of the special event application fee. This would allow the village to recoup charges for the health inspection that would be required for the food trucks. This fee would be for each occurrence. Limit by locations. Food trucks operating with a special event license would be limited to a maximum of 50 total appearances by location per year and cannot exceed twice per month at the same location. This section would waive the Village of Riverside sponsored events such as the Farmers Market, which meets for 19 weeks between June and October. Like a typical special event, all locations would need to go through an approval process with the department heads and the village manager. For example, the public safety director, director of public works, would ensure that any partial or full road closure would not cause any detriment to residents, visitors, or emergency vehicles. Yes.
Number 3, limited to no more than 2 appearances in the
Yes.
same location. So if the farmer's market is not included, that would mean that anyone that parked their food truck at the farmer's market could come for 69 times.
Correct. And if the board would want to change this number of the 50, that's something that's totally possible as well.
Second question. So this is sort of like a sidebar to that, but if we have I'm just thinking, if we have too many food trucks that want to come on farmers market days, there's really not a lot of space for them to park. So I don't know if that's a consideration.
Sorry.
Pardon me. So when we review a special event application, just to explain the internal process that department heads and myself and the village clerk go through, is we will note, like, okay, are there other requests in surrounding areas that we need to have an awareness of? And so typically these special events are put on all the department heads' calendars so that we can kind of track what's happening when. And so if we received multiple requests and it impacted basically public safety, then we exercise the right to basically decline or reject their application. Well, even if it was for the farmer's market. And so Parks and Recreation Department would bring those different applicants and make us aware of it. And even when it's only one food truck, a lot of that has to go through different processes with Director Buckley and other staff members to make sure the positioning, making sure that it doesn't impact adjacent properties or the event in and of itself too.
So I think we would know how many food trucks we could accommodate, and we could just say there's a limit. Even though I know you have the right to reject the application, or you could say, I'm sorry, there's too many already. If we just say there's a limit to this many because of our space limitations, they would see that.
Are you saying for like one of the village's special events? So like an example could be, if we were able to do a food truck festival, I don't know that you would want to limit that on that day, right?
Yeah.
But if you're saying a food truck, so most of the food trucks that you're going to see are typically related to our events. And so we manage those. I'm trying to think of a scenario where you'd have multiple requests, maybe a block party, but even those, we will get information on the block party, street closures, and once again, it's the same process of the same staff members reviewing it.
Okay, I was just thinking about language in the ordinance, that's all, but you're right. Thanks.
What if another organization wanted to have like a food truck festival? I don't know who would have the space for it, but what if,
Well, they could fill out just a
what if
general.
District 96 wants to do in one of their, like in Hauser's parking lot, wants to do a food truck festival?
So they would be required to do a special event process. And so we'd go through those different questions of how many food trucks, the different health inspections that would have to take place.
So we wouldn't have to put a limit on that, besides the fact of space, like what you were talking about before with space constraints and looking at that. Okay.
With the special event applications, we do require a site plan as well. So in
Okay.
that event, we would require a site plan. Public safety director could make sure that the food trucks weren't blocking emergency exits
Okay.
or anything like
All
that.
right, yeah.
Any additional questions on the limits by location section?
I would like some clarification on the limited to no more than 2 appearances in the same location per month and 50 total per year. So is that saying that a property can only have 2 times, can only do it 2 times
2 times per month and.
per month?
Yeah, but if they changed locations, they could in theory appear again in the village of Riverside. So if
Yeah,
someone's.
we're not, correct me if I'm wrong, we're not regulating the actual food truck. Like, food truck X that sells tacos, they could appear in a different location every weekend in town,
This
right?
would be limiting that for the specific food truck.
Why
Because we
would
can't
we-
limit it by them specifically, by their business name. I think that was stated at a previous meeting, that they could change their business name and then in theory circumvent our
Why-
regulations.
Why would we want to do that? Why would we care?
This was feedback at one of the previous board meetings about limiting how often they could appear.
So maybe that's a question for the trustees. If, I'll use Prime Tacos since that's a name we know. If they're so good and so popular that every block party in town and every special event wants to hire them, so what? It's great, isn't it? Why
I would
we
not be
care?
opposed to that either.
Yeah, I would agree.
My question is, is this limit, does it pertain to the special event application? And so if there are multiple block parties, there's going to be multiple applications, so they're kind of resetting their number each time, correct?
I was adding this limit to the specific location. So if it were Addison Road, they could only do it the one time for a block party, or 50 times for a block party. But typically, we don't receive multiple block party requests for the same street anyway.
But just to clarify, if they want to be in a different location, that's a separate special event
Yes,
application.
yes, correct.
Okay, so then I'll throw out there, so what's the point of having it?
Well, I think that, excuse me, my recollection of the prior discussion was that there was a desire to see variety in the, offerings that were coming in. And that there was also, a concern with the other piece of the discussion that we're not at yet about, granting permanence to mobile business that hasn't invested in, Riverside in terms of brick and mortar and, the more significant investment. So if, the 50 per year can be distributed among multiple locations, that is in a sense contributing to variety because it's not the same truck in the same location day after day.
Yeah, I think it was related to the taco truck because it was there every day with their motor, noise pollution and everything else. And so we sort of, if they have a business license, they could be there and do that. But not
But that's separate
on a
from the special
residential.
event.
Right, I'm just saying
But
this
that's
is where the
50
discussion came from.
Yeah, so it doesn't seem like that limitation needs to be involved in a special event application.
I do think the other piece of the limitation is to make it so that people cannot circumvent an annual license by just getting lots of different special event applications as well.
Ah, that makes sense.
Well, so if the limited to 2 appearances per month is property, on a property, that makes sense. But Trustee Marshowski, are you suggesting that by referring to the variety, that you do think we should be regulating Prime Tacos and how often they can be in the village?
By special event.
By
By
special
special
event.
Right, we're just.
I have, in that portion of the discussion, I don't love that granting of, a perpetual presence to people that haven't invested in the brick and mortar, just as a matter of personal principle, but I am willing to, consider a pilot program that sees how it goes. Because I understand, that people are also, would like a way to test the market here in Riverside.
I agree with you to an extent, but I'm concerned that when we as a village start getting into regulating who and what type of food is being
Oh,
sold.
right, no, I don't.
That's dangerous ground.
I know, that's why I haven't gotten to that part of my thought process yet. And I don't mind any of this, special event food truck proposal. I think it's fine.
Trustee Fitzgerald.
So I just have some questions, and we will deconstruct this and put it. The way that kind of the conversation is going is that you have a special license, but can we ask how that's defined on here? So is it homogeneous? Is it kind of fungible? Meaning that I agree. If someone likes Prime Tacos and they want to have it 365 days on their private property for a special event, I think that's different than them going on private property with public access with no special event on there with just that definition. So is that going to be addressed in there?
If there's food being served to the public, they need to have a special event application because we need to do a health inspection.
Understood.
So they would not be able to circumvent the special event application portion of that by having it on private property unless it were fully within, it's only, their family, it's grandma's birthday, no members of the public are being served, the whole family, because they're not gonna, get into trouble with each other. But if they're serving members of the public, it has to have the special event application, or if it's on the Village of Riverside right away.
Great. That's great. So then, thank you. So the other part is, then when we talk about these thresholds on here, does that apply to someone, like if I want to have them at my house, on my property?
No, because it would be within your property. If you're privately holding it, members of the public could not be going to it. It would just be like you're hosting your birthday party.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of where the conversation of the board is happening here, so.
As long as the food truck is on your driveway.
Correct.
If it's on the public street, then you need a special event.
So we're talking about the constructs around the event, but then it's kind of going into what are the thresholds, is what I'm hearing at this point, and thank you for the clarification.
Attorney Pickrell.
Yeah, just to summarize, right, and if I'm understanding everything correctly, if it's on private property serving only the residents and not the public generally, as I understand it, there's going to be no limit to the number of licenses, special event permits, or any restrictions whatsoever for that.
Let me stop you there. Doesn't that become a land use issue? If I have a food truck in my driveway every day of the year, even if it's not selling to the public, isn't that a violation of the residential zoning?
It could be, and I'm assuming that you would not have it so often that it would cease to be a party or become a de facto use. Oh, did I turn this off instead of turning it on? I don't know what's off.
I don't want to get bogged down in that because I think we can all agree but I just want, when we say we're not regulating that, I want to, yes, we probably still are, but that's not the point of tonight's discussion.
Yeah, we're just discussing special events permits and zoning law and all other laws still apply. So then, as I understand it, there's going to be there can be no more than 2 appearances at any particular location per month, and any individual food truck will not be issued more than 50 permits per year, regardless of location.
Correct.
Okay,
So is
that
there?
correct?
Okay.
I don't know if that is correct.
Well, that's, if we're not regulating who's operating the food truck and we are to a degree because they got to sign their name, but if we're not limiting how many times Prime Taco could be in town or Bob's Burgers or whatever, then the 2 appearances has to be based on the location, not the truck. I feel very strongly we do not want to be regulating how many times Prime Taco or Bob's Burgers can contract to be in a special event. That is so contrary to,
Okay.
Well, especially because at this point, what you're talking about is basically the same thing as hiring a caterer, right? It's very similar to hiring a caterer as opposed to hiring a caterer to come in and
yeah.
do your party. You're hiring a food truck to come in and do your part. And so, no, we don't want to put a limit on that
We're
because.
not going to say this caterer can only be in town 2 times a
Right,
year or whatever.
exactly.
So then
So,
we're only regulating per location.
Right.
Then, and so the question then becomes, how many times do we want to allow it at a particular location per month, per year, however you want to measure it?
so interpreting that as we've discussed it is that, and I'll use an example, an arbitrary example. Riverside Foods could have a food truck 2 times a month, maximum, and 50 days out of the year.
Not if they had different food trucks.
Wouldn't matter if it's the same or different.
It's the site.
It's a site.
Not regulating.
It could be the same one or it could be a different one every day. We don't care.
So it doesn't matter, like if they switch food trucks, every, like, let's say they have the first and third Mondays of the month, they always have a food truck. They cannot, even if they keep switching food trucks, they can't have one more than twice a month.
Right, yeah, we don't care, I mean, it's not within the public purview to say what food truck can be there. It's just like we don't say, well, McDonald's can be here, but Burger King can't.
Right. But this is only under the special events.
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
So I have a question and hopefully a clarifying statement. So in that scenario where Riverside Foods has a truck parked on the street, so in the public right-of-way, and they keep switching, then do we need to keep charging another $30 fee for the health inspection for the second, third, fourth business?
For each individual food truck, they would get the $30 fee. So if they were doing a special event for the first and then the third and then the next month, the first and third, depending on the food truck, each occurrence is a $30 fee and a $25 special event fee as well.
Right, so hopefully the final language will make that clear that that temporary service fee may be repeated with repeated businesses, as long as that's clear in the language. So I think it's unlikely that anybody on any one special use permit application is going to have all of these potential visits, but I like the workaround to prevent somebody who's just a business coming in and trying to go around our rules. So I think it's unlikely, but I'm fine keeping that language.
It's also worth remembering that we're speculating about the behavior of businesses and its work, and if we put it into place, and we're not satisfied with how things are operating, we can amend this at any time to address what we're seeing.
I think with the clarifications we've just given, and I'm trying to do the math in my head, but I think the 50 number becomes irrelevant because you can't, twice a month is 2 appearances a month is 2 times 12 is 24, right?
Right.
So maybe we should just change that number to 24 since it's misleading to say 50 when it's in the other half of the regulation doesn't allow you to have 50. So
And I just have one more question for clarification. What does appearances mean exactly? Does that mean per day or does that mean per event? So here's an example. Let's say that Raw had a food truck there.
that's up
They have
to
a
us.
2-day event.
Yeah.
Does that count as their 2 for the month, or does that count as
What's
a single
the
appearance?
board's preference?
That's different.
That's a single special event.
2 days in the same location?
That special event is going to have 2 appearances.
But
So is that
that's a village-sponsored event.
Raw is a village spot?
But your point is still
Yeah.
Okay.
relevant.
Well, let's say another organization has a 2-day event.
How do we define appearance? Is it, you park the truck once, 2 days later it's gone, that's one appearance? Or is the appearance the equivalent of a day?
Potentially, we could include language about a consecutive days for an event would count as one, not to exceed 3 days or 2 days, whatever the board would be interested in doing.
Yeah, I think it's one appearance per special event, so
I know that Raw's not a good example because it's a village event, but let's say, okay, we're gonna use Riverside Foods again. Let's say Riverside Foods is having a 3-day event and they want a pretzel truck there for 3 days. In my mind, that's one appearance because it's for one special event.
But you would want to have an outer limit on the number of days. Say a special event is a single defined event, which shall be no more than X number of days, decide what the number of days is, and that can happen twice a month. Let's say.
Well, and I think that that would be limited by what we want to call a special event. I don't think that's limited by our food truck. I think that's limited by what we want to call a special event. Right? Like if I want to have a special event that is 365 days a year, that's not,
Yeah.
that's not I think that doesn't qualify there. Now, I don't know if that language is already in, I'm not as familiar, I don't know if that's already in the special events application, but my assumption my assumption is that you can't, that when we start looking at special event applications, we're not talking about something that lasts all summer long or all winter long, that would be my assumption, but then again, I'm not as familiar with the special event application to say if there is a duration.
Can we define appearance as 2 consecutive days,
Yes. Or we always say not more.
48-hour period?
48-hour period, sure.
Well, how about just the duration of the special event?
I think it should be
Get in there.
I think it should be the duration of the special event, yeah.
But do we limit those?
How long can a special event occur? Go ahead, man.
So I put down instead of 2 appearances, maybe it's 2 events per month
Yes.
at the same location. And then I would actually keep the 50 days, instead of 50 total per year, 50 days per year. That way it kind of creates some of those different rails.
So
Well done.
that begs the question, how long can a single event go on for? Can it go on for more than 3 days? Can it go on for 30 days?
I don't believe that's specified right now. However, there are some other changes to the special event application that we're planning on bringing
I was
to the
gonna say,
board
that's
at
a
a later
different
meeting.
discussion.
So
Well,
if the board would like to provide guidance on that.
we would need to define how long a special event, because going back to your point, someone could say, I'm having a 365-day long special event.
Right.
Well, no, because that's limited to 50 days, so.
Well, but it's not for,
Well-
but if I don't want a food truck there and I just want to say, hey, I'm turning 50, for the entire year, I am having a special event, which is not a bad idea, I'm thinking about it, but if our special event application doesn't put a limit on it, that might be something we want to look at
We can do that.
And-
after I turn 50.
If you're right, if we change that to 50 total days combined, that
yes.
solves, yeah, okay.
Okay.
So is there consensus on that?
Yes.
Yes,
And this was the easy one.
yeah.
I like the framework. I'll have to say there's a lot of gray area that has to be tethered out of here. My only point would be that for the point B of 1 is that a 1-year duration, when do you anticipate this potentially going live?
After the board adopts any new regulations, so that wouldn't be at this meeting, it would be following maybe next meeting or a later one.
The one recommendation is that since this is a test pilot period, consider bringing it down to 6 months or through the end of this fiscal year, and then going back to the board.
I don't know if that gives us enough time to really get a feel for, the only reason why I say that is I feel like this is going to be seasonal, right? Like, so if we only do 6 months, I worry that that's not going to give us a good feel for the flow. If, just for lack of, I feel like a whole calendar year would give us a better idea of when and if people want to use this, is my only thought on that.
I think we can adopt the regulations without designating it as a pilot program and just tell staff, report back to us in a year
Yeah.
or next
I'm
January.
comfortable with that.
Or 6 months and then a year kind of thing. Yeah.
That sounds reasonable.
Yes.
Okay, I think we have consensus and direction to staff, and they will prepare the necessary ordinances and bring that back to us at the first possible opportunity. Okay. Director Siren.
Thank you. Moving on to food trucks operating as licensed businesses. So, staff is requesting the board's feedback in 2 general areas. So the first is, what kind of regulations would you like to have for food trucks? And the second is, how should we consider those regulations when folks apply for a business license for a food truck? So we'll go through the regulations first. And just as a reminder, there are current regulations in the code for food trucks. They have to have a $100 annual license, remit sales tax to the village, pass health inspections. Just a special note, ice cream trucks are specifically prohibited, except for special events. Just a fun fact about food trucks. So we're going to ask the board to consider additional regulations. The regulations are intended to limit any proposed nuisances that food trucks could cause, and also provide a separation between food trucks and restaurants and food trucks and residences. The regulations would be added to the village code as a business regulation. So there, in the village code, there's a section on business regulations. The existing regulations for food trucks are in there. We would just amend that section of the village code. Again, when someone applies for a business license, we would look at those regulations and see that they're met. And I'll describe that process a little bit further later. So we had previous board consensus that food trucks should be allowed to operate on private property on Harlem Avenue with 2 separation requirements. One is a 100-foot separation from businesses, and the other is a 75-foot separation from residences. And just as a reminder, that would allow a food truck to operate as a licensed business at our marts, such as Prime Tacos did. So that was the consensus previously. The question before you today is, should food trucks be allowed to operate in the central business district? We did not reach consensus on that. So maps showing where the food trucks could operate were included in the agenda materials for the board's references. There aren't many properties where they could operate. I'd be happy to go over the maps if you all would like. Okay, we'll skip ahead. Okay. So when considering whether food trucks should be allowed to operate in the central business district, take a look here. There are the benefits to the public, more new dining options, and the benefits to the food truck operators. Obviously, they get to test their menu and develop new customers. Some considerations when we're considering whether they should be allowed. There is a good concentration of restaurants in the CBD, which offers choices to residents and visitors. Also, food trucks have not expressed an interest in operating in the central business district. They have told us that they can't make enough money. There's not enough foot traffic. So given that and the challenges with parking in the central business district, staff would not recommend allowing food trucks to operate in the central business district. There's not enough interest. There's potentially not enough room for folks to park it. There's not a lot of places they can park. An important note is there is a difference between the central business district and the Harlem Avenue business district. They're 2 business districts, but in organization and use, they're very different. So the central business district is compact, I'd say pedestrian-oriented, not vehicle-oriented. And there are, like I noted, parking challenges. Not that there aren't on Harlem Avenue, but on Harlem Avenue, it's vehicle-oriented. It's located along a major thoroughfare, there are private parking lots, it draws people from the public. So if you're looking at why we would regulate Harlem Avenue differently than the central business district, it's because they are different. There's also the lack of interest, of course, in operating a food truck in the central business district. So I'd like the board's feedback on whether we should allow them to operate there.
Trustees?
I agree with staff's recommendation that we should not allow food trucks in the central business district as permanent businesses.
Me too.
And to be clear, this would cover both public and private parking spaces, right?
They would be allowed, yes, as a permanently licensed business. I was thinking about special events, and I need to focus on my permanently licensed businesses.
I'm fine with it.
I disagree. I do not like having a different standard for our central business district than we do for our Harlem Avenue, and I understand that they're different. But I think in this instance, it does not make sense to me, especially because we don't even think it's going to happen. or people are going to want it, it does not make sense to me to have a different standard for the central business district, in this instance, for the central business district than Harlem Avenue. It doesn't make sense to me.
Same. If it doesn't make a difference, why disallow it? That's a private sector decision. If they decide as food trucks that it's not going to be viable for their business, they're going to elect not to put their food trucks there, not to apply for that. I'd rather have it by de facto, not by de jure.
So I would point out that both districts have a completely separate list of permitted uses. We
Correct.
already make that distinguish.
Correct.
Fair to say you think food trucks have the same impact downtown as they do on Harlem. If that's your belief, then yes, I understand why you would say it should be allowed in both. But it sounds like the board's split on this, so I think in the interest of time, I would just like to go around and take an informal vote, unless there's more discussion to be had on this particular issue. Someone like to start off? Trustee Fitzgerald, we'll start at your end.
I would be more towards prohibiting at this point from the central business district.
Trustee Mateo?
Same, although if somebody really wanted to push to allow it on private property, I would entertain that.
They could, it's a good point.
Just
Someone
to
could
clarify,
always,
we're only talking about private property here.
We would never allow them on public streets.
right.
Right,
But we have public parking lots.
right, but that's not, and I need this clarified because I need to know, for my opinion, what, I thought we were only talking about, like, you had to have a private parking lot, like, at least when I was looking at the maps, those are
That's what I thought,
not
too.
the public parking lots.
Right. I
So
thought
you would
maybe-
have to have somebody, I don't know, I can't remember, but like you would have to have Riverside Foods lending you space. It couldn't be in a public parking lot.
I don't
I
recall.
want clarification.
Yeah, I think we
Could
need to
we
clarify
see the
that.
map that you have
Sure.
on there? 'Cause
So
I don't
the ma-
recall that being a discussion that we were
Sure.
okay with that at all.
So I don't think the board discussed having food trucks on village-owned property. The maps were included, this one, showing the village-owned Lot 1 next to the swim club was included in previous board discussions, but I don't think the board went into whether the village would want to entertain offering a spot in the village-owned property. The other one, there are a couple of village-owned lots here marked in blue. Those are, I believe, currently occupied, so I think there's a note about that being problematic for parking. And then the village-owned green lot on your right here has space available, but that was intended for the Riverside shops, and then there's some parking obligations in that area.
Well, there's parking by the post office and by Riverside Bank that is public.
That's true. Yes.
Yeah, I'm not in
thought-
favor of them being in public parking lots on village taxpayer bought and paid for parking lots.
I just think the whole central business district is too compact to have these sustained generators operating in a pedestrian-friendly environment on a continued basis. So I'm not in favor of it.
So
I'm not in favor.
let's narrow this so we can proceed. Right now, let's just talk about on private property only. Are you in favor of allowing it in the central business district or not? Private property only. Trustee Fitzgerald, is that consistent with what you do?
Can I just say one more thing before people vote? Again, if we are talking about private property, not only do I have a problem with, in this instance, with separating Harlem from the central business district, even though they are two different districts, I also don't like the idea of offering a potential business incentive for people to drive, people to have food trucks. Like, again, if Riverside Foods wants to have a food truck, we can also regulate it and say it has to be X distance from the sidewalk if we want to. But I don't like the idea of putting this limit on our businesses either. If a business wants to do something that they think will drive more business to them, I don't want to limit that even in the central business district.
And I would like to add to that, because we were going to, as a village board, invest large amounts of taxpayer dollars into the small shops. And at the start of an incubator space so that business could grow. We brought up the idea of Prime State Tacos, which is that success story that was born and nurtured by the private sector. Not a single dollar of taxpayer dollars went into that. They're no longer at our marks anymore because they now have a place on Harlem Avenue, a brick and mortar place, and they've grown and they've touched us at the market. Why should we limit that success story to just Harlem Avenue and not allow a business in our central business district to have that opportunity?
Especially since we want to drive business into the central business district. So if they are successful as a food truck, again, I'm using Riverside Foods, in Riverside Foods parking lot, they are far more likely to want to have a business in the central business district because that's where they have been successful, right? If we are trying to drive business into our central business district, this, like you said, this is an incubator situation. Granted, it doesn't sound like there's a lot of interest in it, but again, I don't want to limit it just beforehand. Sorry.
Trustee Evans.
So there are space limitations as well, so they
The
have to be
separation
100.
requirements.
Yeah. So, and you said that there was reasons why it's not really even possible to allow it.
I think, well, you've got it would be unlikely that folks would do it, and I think that's why there hasn't been interest.
I mean, it's possible they will do it, but I think that if where would they park in the central business district that's not 100 feet from a restaurant?
A Sonic Lodge?
So we marked off, I mean, obviously, these are very unlikely
that's
situations. So
fine.
you've got the garage. In this area, we can probably eliminate this site because of the planning development that's being built here. This is the Lynn Pastoral Center, Lynn Pastoral Center. There's Riverside Foods, Salon de Moore, and then the parking here by Athletico and the post office, and then
No,
by the
those
bank.
are, those are public. Those are ours.
Those are public, I'm sorry, yes.
Couldn't St. Mary have, if they
St.
wanted to?
St. Mary's is actually zoned in the residential district.
Oh, that's right,
Yeah.
Correct, sorry.
Sure.
But
So
when you're
in-
talking about the Lime Pastoral Center, there's the two lots, there's even the lot behind.
So in the green parking lot, which is really a red brick one, we were willing to have that space designated for our small shops. Now you're telling me that those size businesses would not make it elsewhere in our central business district?
No, we never voted yes or no.
Well,
Maybe they
we
would
didn't
have
vote on
worked,
it.
but we didn't vote on
But
it.
we
It was
were
just
in
too
favor of it.
expensive
We
to
wanted to go
even.
through it. I agree, it is.
So that's not really a good,
Well, it is because we were in favor of
Argument.
it except for the expense.
Well, I think there's arguments that could be made either way, and so I want to go back to see if we could reach consensus here. Should food trucks be a permitted use under our zoning ordinance in the central business district? And we're talking just private property.
Okay.
With the license.
Well, of course, with a license.
Yeah.
All businesses have to get licenses, yes.
Start the conversation. All right. I'm still going to stick with what I said before with no. I understand that this is a moving needle on here. My biggest concern has to do with, we see that the existing restaurants or food trucks have not expressed interest. I'd like just a little more clarification along the way when we get the final decision of what the brick and mortars take, how they view it as well. So, and that could potentially change.
Well, the chamber was asked this question, and they were in favor of it because they are in favor of competition in general. So that is the answer to your question then.
All right.
Let's,
And did EDC weigh in on this?
Check my notes for our discussion.
Several years ago. A few years ago.
On March 12th, the EDC recommended the village take a balanced approach to allow food trucks without negatively impacting established restaurants and to establish fees to recoup village expenses.
11 months ago, okay.
That's correct.
Trustee Mateo?
I'm not against it. I mean, I wouldn't prohibit it. If the majority wants it, then I would go along with that.
Trustee Evans?
no, I'll go with staff recommendation.
Yes, yes,
I'm in favor.
I'm a no.
and you're no.
Doug?
So, yeah, is there any interest in making it a special use in the downtown instead of a permitted use? That would perhaps address Trustee Mateo's concerns.
Well, it already would be if we adopt the special use. It's for special event?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Special
special
is a
use.
different term.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a zoning term.
Okay.
In other words, it would be a use that's listed in the zoning, or we're talking about making a permitted use in the Harlem B1 district. At least that's the impression I got from the board. And in the central business district, if we're not sure of how it will impact the downtown, that's kind of what a special use is all about.
So that the village board would
allows-
have to weigh in on each circumstance. Is that- is
Right.
there-
Each one would have to go through a public hearing with the Planning and Zoning Commission. They would look at the individual location, decide if that particular location will have a negative impact on surrounding properties, whether it fits that property, there's proper circulation, et cetera, et cetera. And then the Planning and Zoning Commission makes a recommendation, goes to us. It's a process that a
It's a
business has to go
compromise.
through, but it's kind of splitting the baby in half, if you will.
Ideal-
Given the restaurants and given the residences and the need for those specific separations, I like the idea of a special use.
I would add one of the benefits of a special use is you can attach conditions to the approval that will further address any site-specific issues.
I'd be okay with the
Direction we
compromise.
want to go? I'm seeing heads nod.
With special use.
Okay,
All right,
so special use in the downtown.
thank you. Does the board support increasing the business license fee from $100 to $1,000? Staff recommends this based on the staff resources used to ensure trucks are in compliance with village standards. That would be an annual fee.
And that covers our costs, right? I mean,
That's
we're
correct.
not,
The intention is to cover staff costs to ensure compliance.
And that is comparable to other villages in the area.
They range. The ones that I saw were certainly lower than $1,000. We have had issues of ensuring that taxes were remitted, and so staff time was spent on that. So it's not just code enforcement, it's also ensuring
Okay.
that.
I'm comfortable with that too.
Yeah.
And that's on top of the fee for the special use process, which is,
Well, not if we allow it in Harlem, there wouldn't be a special use.
So
we're
Right.
talking about CBD, aren't we?
Oh, no,
Oh, I
I
thought we were
think
going
now
to
we're
CBD.
talking broader again.
just
right?
generally,
Generally.
for all food trucks.
This is fee that would apply to
For
B1.
Right.
business licensed food trucks.
But in CBD, it would be on top of the special use
Right.
process fee.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean, I think it's fine as long as it's not prohibitive. It sounds like we're just recouping our loss, so that's fine.
That's the intention. Okay.
Consensus on that point?
Yes.
Sorry. Okay, thank you. There wasn't consensus about whether the board wanted to limit food trucks' operating days and times. Staff would not recommend limiting the number of days that food trucks can operate. The limitation would be unique to food trucks and would require additional staff resources to ensure compliance. Instead, staff recommends hours for service between 7 a.m. and 9 p.m. And using other standards that we're proposing to ensure that food trucks aren't a nuisance to neighbors.
Yep.
Have we gotten any complaints from residences about the existing one that we did have for a considerable amount of time?
We had complaints, but it was from other businesses, and just generally speaking, that those that were going to Prime Taco, so one example that actually Director Siren and I talked about today was a truck actually parked in Alfaro's parking lot, prohibiting traffic from going into their parking lot. And so their customers couldn't enter or exit because this person went to place their order at Prime Tacos. So that was pretty impactful. But then also a lot of individuals, and these were different complaints that Director Buckley was also fielding within the police department, because they would get calls of customers for Prime Tacos would park in Alfaro's lot, walk over, patronize, and so they would be taking up Alfaro's parking spaces.
Okay. My only thought on this, as far as the regulation for hours, one of my favorite food trucks is a gourmet coffee and breakfast place, and 7 a.m. is too late for something like that, like, so, like they're open at 4:30 or 5. So again, if we're restricting for how close they can be to residences, I'm not sure that I agree with the hours. I don't mind definitely the other standards that I definitely think we need to address, but the time, again, just don't want to restrict my gourmet coffee place.
So here's a question. Was the 7 to 9 chosen because of the sounds of the engine that their generators would make?
That's it, yeah.
Okay.
So the outdoor cafes, I believe, can operate between 6 a.m. and I believe 11 p.m. That seemed a little bit excessive for food trucks. If you consider other noise standards that we have, construction hours start at 7 a.m. and run to 8 p.m. on weekdays. 8 p.m. seemed a little bit early on summer nights, so that was kind of a compromise suggestion.
If they didn't have to have the generator to make your coffee and other stuff that you want.
Well, yeah, and
Would
I
that
just
be
felt
within
like that was
story?
the 75 feet from residences was, that kind of covered the generator noise issue, was my thought.
That's the intention.
Right, so that's why we could, I guess my thought process is we could add hours to that situation if the need arose, but to my mind, there's no reason to put that restriction on it yet unless we felt like we needed to. Again, only because I'm thinking about those early morning, like the breakfast burrito places and stuff like that, if we already have that 75 feet, I don't think it's going to impact residences.
You could always amend the code, though, if that situation arises.
Yeah, and then I'm just saying I would rather amend it to add times later than amend it, than to just start with it right now, is my thought.
So
I'd
leave it
rather-
at 7 for now?
No, I'd rather not have a time restriction right now and then amend it to add a time restriction at a later date if we felt like there was a problem.
Yeah,
I'm okay with
I-
the 7 to 9.
The construction, I do remember that being a discussion because the water tower on Northgate was being done at that time, and it was a different board, obviously. And their machines would just be on. I mean, they would wake up. But that was in a residential,
Right.
and this is now in a commercial. So I don't know if I see the need to have it restricted from 7 to 9.
I'm fine with 7 to 9.
I'm fine with 7 to 9.
Trustee Fitzgerald, do you have an opinion on that?
I think that for right now, to keep everything moving forward, we leave it at 7 to 9, and if we have to make changes when we take final action.
The consensus for now is to draft the ordinance with 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. restriction.
Okay. And there was also a board discussion about potentially limiting the number of food trucks operating on a property. Again, the purpose of that would be to limit nuisances. There are some communities that have those restrictions, typically communities with larger properties where you might have, oh gosh, what are they called? Like a food truck rodeo or things like that, in which case you'd put a limit on the number of food trucks on the property, or a separation requirement between the two. It seems unlikely that we'll need that regulation. Staff wouldn't recommend including that regulation at this point.
That makes sense to me.
Fair enough.
Okay.
So, a question in that regard, do we have in the use standards or somewhere, do we address the issue of having proper circulation and not interfering with parking and?
Getting into
that's-
those.
Okay.
You got ahead of me. So, other standards. These are general standards, I think, that would have board consensus, but I just want to check before we move forward. We currently require compliance with the village health and sanitation standards, which includes noise standards, I would point out, but we want to clarify that in our regulations. That property owners must provide trash receptacles, that the discharge of grease or gray water is prohibited on site.
When you say provide trash receptacles, does that also include they have to haul their own trash away?
That's,
Thank
yes.
you, just want to make sure.
Yes. We won't let them get through that loophole.
Yep.
We would prohibit external lights, flashing lights, and amplified sound. And that property owners must provide sufficient off-street parking for customers of the existing businesses and for their food truck. So communities typically require 2 to 3 off-street parking spaces. I'd like to discuss that, you know, on a staff level or perhaps a planning and zoning commission level, and come back to you with a recommendation. And then the trucks cannot block or occupy sidewalks, fire hydrants, fire lanes, or accessible parking spaces, and drive-through service is prohibited.
Fair enough.
Okay. So again, these regulations will be added to the municipal code under business regulations. When a food truck applies for a business license, staff would review the regulations to make sure they're met and they'd be upheld to those standards. The other general area, which we've already kind of touched on, is how should the food truck licenses be reviewed? I think we've had this settled, where effectively, if a food truck came in and they wanted to operate on Harlem Avenue, we would review their business license to make sure they met those regulations that we just discussed. If they wanted to operate in the central business district, we would review those and also require a special use approval, which is that zoning approval where the person applies for zoning relief specific to that location. Now, typically this can be the property owner, and they're gonna say, I want a food truck in this location. That can be any food truck once they get the approval, any licensed food truck. So they still have to get the license, but that would go before the Planning and Zoning Commission for recommendation and the village board for final approval. And just a couple of notes for the special use approval. It requires notice to property owners within 250 feet of the subject property, so folks know they can show up to the public hearing and express themselves. And that would be published in the newspaper, and a sign would be on the property as well. And just a note, the applicant does pay the application fees for that application. It's an average of $3,000. If it costs less, we'll refund that money. If it costs more, they need to pay the difference. But that would be a one-time fee, one-time approval. Once it's approved, they could have any licensed food truck operate in that space with any conditions that the board might apply to that specific special use approval.
Okay, I have 2 questions on this. One, if my business wants to get a special use permit, is it for a single food truck, meaning like I can only have Prime Tacos there, or would that special use approval say, like, let's say 2 days a week they have a coffee place, 2 days a week they have a taco place, so it is for a special use for a food truck, not necessarily a specific food truck?
That's exactly correct.
Okay, then my second thing is, so basically we're saying if somebody wants to have a food truck in the central business district, it's gonna be about roughly $4,000 for them to experiment with that
For the first year.
for the first year.
Special use approval is a one-time approval. It lasts as long as they meet the conditions of the special use. So they
Okay.
have the business license at $1,000 that first year, and
Okay.
recurring years.
And so the
Yep.
business license would come up every year for
That's
$1,000, but it's $4,000 to,
That would be correct. And presumably,
Wow.
if someone were interested in operating a food truck in the central business district, I would assume that they would have the benefit of having special events that they could test out the idea and think that they're going to be successful before moving forward.
okay, that seems extremely prohibitive to me.
I just want to clarify, the special use runs to the property owner, and the business license runs to the food truck?
That's correct.
But, and in a case where a property owner wanted to get a special use to have multiple food trucks rotating through their property, it's not, if it's not the same food truck on a sustained basis, they wouldn't be going through the business license process, right?
They would if they're operating outside of a special use permit, because we're talking about licensed business operations, right?
Okay,
that
so
would
it's
be-
just if they want to be there in excess of 24 times,
this
in
would-
other words.
This would be if they're
Like
not
if they had a
getting-
rotating situation and the regular special event process says you can only be twice a month or 24 times in the same location, if the property owner wanted to have the same food truck there 25 times, that food truck would have to get the $1,000 special license.
Yes.
License, business license.
Yes,
Yes, okay,
yes.
got it.
And a
Thanks.
$3,000 application fee.
The property owner would
Well, I'm
get
just saying,
that,
it was-
but the
Okay.
food truck. They changed it. Appearing 25 times or more at that same location where it was approved would then get the
All right, just to be clear. Thank you.
Those are the only questions that I had, but I did want to note that these changes would require updating both the village code and the zoning code. Zoning text amendments go through the Planning and Zoning Commission, the Preservation Commission, so we'll go through that process and return to you with the changes to the code.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for this.
Thanks.
I think we've got direction and consensus to move forward. I would caution the board, Planning and Zoning Commission has to review this for zoning amendments. They may make recommendations contrary to what we've suggested, and that's their prerogative, and they are a very good commission, and I look forward to seeing what their input may be. Thank you, Director Siren, Clerk Stenzel. Next on the agenda is motion to authorize the allocation of Sesquicentennial Committee fund balance surplus for the Legacy Project donation to Turtle Park. Manager Francis.
Thank you. Trustee Marshazga already alluded to this at the previous board meeting, and then also earlier this evening that the Sesquicentennial Committee would like to contribute or allocate their fund balance once all their final bills are paid and all the final auctions, everything's been finalized out, that they would make that contribution to the Turtle Park project as part of their legacy project. And so right now, it's estimated to be approximately $20,000, but obviously that's subject to change with final financials and things of that sort. One item that was noted, it is recommended that some type of small signage be installed within Turtle Park to recognize this as a legacy project of the committee. But that is all I have.
Trustees, any questions for staff? Comments, discussion? No public comment. Could I have a motion and a second to approve?
Second.
Motion and a second.
Did you want?
Sorry, sorry, guys.
No, we're happy that you're.
We're happy that you're, yes, exactly.
We'll take it.
Thank you. Clerk Stenzel.
Trustee Marshazga?
Aye.
Trustee Gallagher?
Aye.
Trustee Cos?
Aye.
Trustee Evans?
Aye.
Trustee Mateo?
Aye.
Trustee Fitzgerald?
Aye.
And thank you to the Sesquicentennial Committee for your donation. Resolution approving amendment to agreement between the Village of Riverside and Paramedic Services of Illinois, Inc. Director Buckley.
Good evening. I come before you this evening with that resolution authorizing the village manager to approve a first amendment to our March 16th, 2023 agreement between the Village of Riverside and Paramedic Services of Illinois, otherwise known as PSI. They're our current contract paramedic organization or group. A little bit of history back in 2023, we did a request for proposal. There were two companies that submitted requests for proposal. One of them was PSI. They were the low bid on that proposal, so we accepted it. They've been here for the last 3 years. Our contract is up April 1st, actually March 31st. The new one will start April 1st. We did ask, we were going to look at possibly going out for an RFP again, but due to how it went last time, where the number 2 company was 26% higher than what PSI had originally, what they gave us, we decided to talk with PSI to see if we could extend the contract, because in the current contract, there was a proposal to extend it for 3 more years on a yearly basis, which is why we're asking today to extend it for 1 more year from April 1st of 2026 through March 31st of 2027, instead of going out for bid again, or for proposals. The cost of this would be $770,000 for this 1 year extension. It is a little bit higher than what they originally proposed to us back in 2023. And the reason for that is due to changes within the industry with firefighters and paramedics, trying to hire ones that are going to stay here a little bit longer, make it more competitive with our neighboring communities. This will bring us up to speed and up to that threshold where they need to be to retain good employees here, which they've been very successful with. So at this time, it would be our recommendation to approve this extension of our contract for another year. It has been reviewed by Attorney Pickrell, who also went through it with us and said everything looked good. They made a couple minor little tweaks and changes, but everything else was good with the extension.
Thank you. Any questions for staff?
This is recommendation. I'm comfortable with it as well.
Yeah.
Someone like to make a motion and a second to approve?
I'll make said motion.
Second.
Motion and second. Clerk Stenzel.
Trustee Marshaska?
Aye.
Trustee Gallagher?
Aye.
Trustee Cost?
Aye.
Trustee Evans?
Aye.
Trustee Mateo?
Aye.
Trustee Fitzgerald?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Resolution is approved. A resolution authorizing the village manager to waive competitive bidding and execute an agreement with Christopher B. Burke Engineering Limited for a total amount not to exceed $55,000 for professional engineering services for a bicycle and pedestrian plan. Manager Francis.
Thank you. First, I wanted to note that this item was in our capital plan for fiscal year 2026. Additionally, the amount that is included is $55,000, and we're asking for that full amount for the purchase order, though the proposal is $52,153, simply for the fact that if additional public engagement is required or other meetings, we have that buffer. We don't have to come back to the village board for a change order. But listed within the scope of services lists the various tasks that Burke Engineering will complete. This is consistent with the village board's goals of making sure that we're aligning various improvements throughout the village in different areas within the village, that we're addressing them in a very precise and cost-effective manner so that we don't have to come back to a street to then address something thereafter. And so as part of the bike and pedestrian plan, the scope of the plan shall include all active modes of mobility and designed for all residents with an emphasis on safety, connecting existing routes, and comfort while walking, rolling, and biking. Obviously, there's a lot of different connector routes that come into Riverside for different multi-use paths, and that's only going to continue to grow in future years. So making sure that we bear that in mind as we're making different improvements throughout the village. And so it would require the village board to opine on what they would like to see. So ultimately, it'll have different stakeholder feedback, different data that is provided, and finally a presentation of the village board. And that would be the first phase, and then thereafter, then staff would then incorporate those different recommendations with the board's support into future capital plans. And so this is, the plan creates the baseline to then grow it into our annual CIP process.
Does this proposal include, it seems like it does, but just to clarify, the board had earlier had a discussion about motorized bikes and e-bikes and things like that. Is this something that they will address within this?
Yes.
Thank you.
And so it'll be a collaborative approach to across the different departments. So myself, Clerk Stenzel, Director Buckley, and Director Tab and Director Siren will all be part of this group. I'll be obviously managing it, but we'll be working with Burke to collect all that information.
Any further questions, comments?
I'm comfortable with this as well, so.
Someone like to make a motion and a second to
So
approve the
moved.
resolution?
Second.
Motion and second. Clerk Stenzel.
Trustee Marshaska?
Aye.
Trustee Gallagher?
Aye.
Trustee Cost?
Aye.
Trustee Evans?
Aye.
Trustee Mateo?
Aye.
Trustee Fitzgerald?
Aye.
Resolution is approved. New business, an ordinance amending various sections of the village code of the Village of Riverside, Illinois. Clerk Stenzel.
Thank you. This ordinance is just a code cleanup item. The sections of the code being amended are the village clerk section and the municipal auditing section. There are no changes to the actual role itself or the current process. It's updating the language in the code to be with current practices. Please note there is a correction that was made in the original ordinance that was published with the packet. The original ordinance used language for his or her, whereas the final version of the ordinance will use their, just to better align with the current updates that we do to the village code.
Okay.
Questions for staff? Someone like to make a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Clerk Stenzel.
Trustee Marshaska?
Aye.
Trustee Gallagher?
Aye.
Trustee Cost?
Aye.
Trustee Evans?
Aye.
Trustee Mateo?
Aye.
Trustee Fitzgerald?
Aye.
Motion approved. Motion to adopt amended fee schedule. Clerk Stenzel.
This is for two separate items on the agenda, that amended language in the code relevant to fees and directing them to be in the fee schedule. The sewerage charges ordinance and the building code charges, which were featured in the consent agenda. The amended fee schedule does not make any changes to the actual value of the fees.
Questions for staff?
For this one and the last one, my huge nerd side loves that you're doing all this, and thank you so much for doing this, because this is
Appreciate
awesome cleaning it up.
My huge nerd side loves it too.
Good.
I would like, motion and a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Clerk Stenzel.
Trustee Marshowska.
Aye.
Trustee Galagos.
Aye.
Trustee Koss.
Aye.
Trustee Evans.
Aye.
Trustee Mateo.
Aye.
Trustee Fitzgerald.
Motion carries. The board does have a need for an executive session this evening to discuss the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of a specific employee or legal counsel. The board will not reconvene and no final action will take place. I would ask for a motion and a second to adjourn to executive session.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.